With round one of the Six Nations in the history books, which are the players that have enhanced their reputation, whose stock has risen? This is my team of the week for round one. As ever, get stuck in the comments down below. It's really interesting. There's so much going on a rugby field. There's so many things that you see that opinions can vary massively as to who's had a great game and who's had a good game. And those margins can be fine. So I want to know what you think. Which players have I not selected in the team of the week that you would have done? And or where do you agree? Because that's always nice to hear as well. So get stuck in down below. I'm going to start at loose head prop. And my first selection is a Welshman. Might be surprised to see that. And certainly if I was picking the team at half-time, I can't imagine there'd be any Welshman. Certainly not in that pack that would be selected. Corey Domachowski had a knock early on in the game. And he thought at one point he might go off injured. And then he ended up playing the entire 80 minutes. And that second half was breathless. And he was doing his job right to the end. There were no loose head props to me that really had exceptional performances. And I think that 80-minute shift for Corey Domachowski in Cardiff deserves some recognition. At hooker, Dan Sheehan. What a player. Just what a player. I talk about him a lot on this channel. He is one of my favourite rugby players, full stop. He could be an amazing international back row. At hooker, he is just different gravy. And bearing in mind, Piato Malvaca had such a good Rugby World Cup for France. Dan Sheehan had Malvaca in his shadow, and he was truly world class on Friday night. The only selection for me. I think the props generally, and got to remember, it's Six Nations. There's only 3 games. There's only 6 teams. I don't think there was a tight head prop, much like the loose head prop, who really stood out real head and shoulders above the rest, except for Awini Atonio, who literally stands head and shoulders above most tight head props. And I thought he put in a really big shift. He was one of the few Frenchmen that was the better of his opposite man. He kept Andrew Porter very, very quiet. He was, I think, was the best prop on the field on Friday night. He was on the losing team, and his performance probably didn't deserve that. I thought he was really good. Put just a massive work rate. And when you talk about huge engines, you know who's coming next at number 4, Joe McCarthy, or as he shall henceforth be known on the channel, Big Joe. If Andy Farrell calls him Big Joe, I'm going to call him Big Joe. Big Joe was immense. 22 years of age, and that was a breakout performance. He was immense in the Champions Cup only a couple of weeks ago for Leinster. He is a test match animal, though, isn't he? He is a potentially, I don't want to hype someone up too much because it's just a game against France. But when you looked at that and you thought, this kid's 22, you thought, World Player of the Year potential in the future. Just leave a pin in that one. Very, very special talent. And alongside him, what balance they have got in the second row for Ireland at the minute. When you consider, Ian Henderson and James Ryan would be an amazing second row partnership at international level. I'd be very happy with that. One of them's on the bench. One of them can't even get in the matchday squad. Tadhg Beirne's work rate is off the charts. His stats are unreal. He looks absolutely exhausted in 5 minutes into a game, and he keeps going at the same level for the next 75 minutes after that. He is such an amazing player. I love Tadhg Beirne. And if I spelt his name right that time, I keep getting the G and the H the wrong way round, so hopefully that's correct. Into the back row, Ethan Roots for England. Great debut. Big frame on him. I was having a chat with mates of mine last night when we were doing our Egg Chasers podcast, which you can listen to wherever you get your podcasts. And we were discussing that Ethan Roots he just makes me think, when I see him, a big boy who got given a chance because he played some good games for his club. There are so many players like Ethan Roots, big boys, playing brilliantly in the Premiership, who never get a shot. When you think of guys like Don Armand and Dave Ewers, for example. And this is just an example, and hopefully this points the way. Reward Premiership form, and when someone is just a big unit, you can't coach that stuff. Being massive is a great attribute. Get them on an international rugby field. I was delighted for Ethan Roots. That's brilliant. Into the back row then, and I almost selected Tommy Reffell at open side flanker. I thought he was great. I've gone for Caelan Doris. Now, yes, Caelan Doris was wearing number 8 on his back. He played about half an hour at open side flanker, and that's all the excuse I need to accommodate Caelan Doris in my back row because, oh my word, again, just like Dan Sheehan, I rave about Caelan Doris. This is maybe the classiest rugby union player, maybe one of the best rugby brains on earth. In terms of forwards, him and Gregory Aldrit, maybe the two best rugby brains. I love Caelan Doris. What a guy, what a player. He was brilliant, and put the rest of the French back row in his shadow on Friday night as well. And into number 8. And the reason I've shunted Caelan Doris across was because Aaron Wainwright was amazing. There were some really good performances at number 8, actually. I thought Ben Earl for England was really industrious. Lorenzo Canoni for Italy was really good. Aaron Wainwright, though, that second half performance from him was immense. And Wales, without Aaron Wainwright, particularly when you think about the players that aren't there at the moment, Taulupe Faletau, guys that have retired like Justin Tipperick, these like household names in Welsh rugby, they needed someone to grab that team by the scruff of the neck, and it was this guy on Saturday afternoon, and he nearly brought about a famous comeback. Into the backs then. Jameson Gibson Park, the automatic choice at scrum half. The tempo that he plays at is phenomenal. A little mention for Alessandro Garbisi. That's been a bit of a problem shirt for Italy, and he appears to have made that jersey his own under Gonzalo Quesada, and hopefully with his brother Paolo they can form a little axis for Italy that will mastermind some positive performances going forward. Halfback, it had to be Finn Russell, didn't it? Jack Crowley for Ireland was excellent, but Finn Russell is... Yeah, I was talking about Caelan Doris's rugby brain. This guy thinks and sees rugby in a way that very few do, and what a player. And the rest of his Scotland team in that second half were not on Finn Russell's page. And I guess from a captain's point of view, that's one thing that Finn Russell will have to reflect on. How, when things aren't going right for you, how can you kind of stop and get the team back on page together? Because it did fall apart for them. Fortunately for Scotland, they had Duhan van der Merwe on one wing. James Lowe's left howitzer of a left boot was really important for Ireland, but this guy is a world-class finisher. I think maybe only Damian Penaud scores the try that he scored, his second try at the start of the second half. He wasn't even touched running round the outside of an international winger. You do not see that on an international rugby field. It is incredible. This guy as a finisher is phenomenal, and he's such a massive man, and to shift the way he does, what a player. Into the centres then, and actually I'm going to say, I think the centres was props and centres were the two weakest areas overall when you look at round 1 of the Six Nations. Tommaso Menoncello, I thought he was really good. He's a big unit, and along with Ignacio Brex, they've got a good centre partnership there. Physical, abrasive, and they can bust teams open when they want to, as Menoncello did for that Tommy Allen try. That was off a line-out, wasn't it? First phase, fantastic wraparound move, and Menoncello just taking it right to the line before the little lift out back. And yeah, he showed some moments of class. But there wasn't a 12, I thought, that had a really outstanding game. Bundy Aki was solid again, but there were some more disappointing performances when you look around the centres, and for that reason as well, I've gone Robbie Henshaw at 13. Again, a little bit like when I was mentioning James Ryan off the bench for Ireland. Imagine having him when Gary Ringrose or Bundy Aki is out. Like, he must have 5 or 6 caps for the British and Irish Lions. One of the best Irish players of the last decade. And he's the backup to your centres, and he can play in either position, and he could slot in at fullback as well and do a really good job there. What a player, and I thought he was really good. I do think 13 was the poorest position out of all 15 when you look across the 6 teams. Hugh Jones had some moments. He was at fault he butchered a chance early on in the Scotland game. He had a couple of good attacking moments. Henry Slade had some moments, but was at fault for, was it the first Italian try? So no 13 really stood out. Robbie Henshaw in the pressure cooker in Marseille did the job. On the right wing then, Tommy Freeman, industrious. What I loved about Tommy Freeman's performance so much for England is that he appeared elsewhere on the pitch other than on his right wing. And that's what I loved about Jack Noel when he used to wear the number 14 jersey for England. I like a busy, hard-working winger. And I think you need one of those in a team. Mac Hansen does that job for Ireland fantastically. When New Zealand play, you have Talea that quite often keeps the width for you, and Will Jordan will just pop up all over the place. So I like that balance. And Tommy Freeman, big boy, can shift, great rugby brain on him, and the way he arced came off his wing, came into the 13 channel on his opposite side to create the extra man to get Elliot Daly in was a moment of real class. And I thought Damien Penaud was good in a poor team. I thought Calvin Nash was good. He had the most metres out of any player on the pitch on Friday night's game, but Tommy Freeman just gets the nod. And at fullback, I had to go for Hugo Keenan. It wasn't Hugo Keenan's best game, but then this is the thing I love about Hugo Keenan. He rarely ever drops below a 7 out of 10. And he's quite often at an 8 out of 10, occasionally 9. Quite often he'll get to the elusive 10 as well. He is such a metronomically consistent fullback who just makes great decisions. And that's exactly what you want in a fullback. Just reliable, consistent, and a fantastic rugby brain. That tackle he put in on Damien Penaud on his own line was such a great moment at a really important point in the match when France were getting a bit of ascendancy. And yeah, I think Kyle Rowe should get a mention. I thought he looked good in his Six Nations debut for Scotland. I thought Cam Winnett, bearing in mind he's a kid basically with a handful of senior games, looked promising for Wales. But this guy was class. As for the top 3 players of the entire round, I've made my selections. Tell me what you think about this. Bear with me a second. There we go. Tadhg Beirne's work rate at number 3. Aaron Wainwright for dragging his team to a near incredible victory in Cardiff for Wales. And I've watched that France-Ireland game again. And on Friday night, I said I thought Tadhg Beirne should have been man of the match. He was fantastic. But watching it again, oh my goodness, Joe McCarthy is a frightening customer. Definitely player of the round. Unless you disagree. In which case, tell me what you think. Get stuck in the comments down below. Give the video a thumbs up. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, because there's loads of Six Nations and general rugby content coming your way very soon. And I will see you on the next one.